Data.
Excellent. So let's imagine that you are Derek at the Bryant Community Center. Your community center has food distributions 3 times a month, 2 times a month clients can come. You have after-school programs where you feed the students dinner. You have senior citizen programs, job opportunity programs. You have all these different community programs, and you have this thick binder, right? It's a huge paper binder. It has all the client information, and every time that a client comes in, you flip through it, you put a little check mark next to their name to show that they need it. So imagine that you're Derek, and you want this integrated system. You want this integrated database where you can bypass the paper. You don't even have to write it down and then transcribe it into your Google Docs that you use. But instead, you have this database that has grant writing functions, has volunteer functions, has donor functions. You have an inventory system for your food distribution. You know what food is coming in, what food is going out. You can do it all through this computer. You're helping out your community, and ultimately, you can provide better nutritional information for these food distributions. You can have nutritional information and know what community members are getting what and what kind of food they're getting. Can you start the timer? So we thought this was a great idea. Derek wanted this for his community, and we were going to provide it for him, but we also wanted to see if we could provide it for other nonprofits, right? How could we scale this? How could we make a social venture out of this? And so first, I'll talk a little bit about our idea, right? We wanted to make a cloud software, so that means that you could use it anywhere where you had internet access. So you'd obviously need a computer to access it. Be software as a service, meaning you would use a subscription basis. So I want to walk you through basically what this database would look like. And this is a database that we're going to implement at Bryant Community Center, but as Moses said, we're not implementing this elsewhere. But I'll take you through this. So first off, you would have to sign in, since it would be an internet basis, and you have client information, which is, of course, you want to be secure. You would have different databases that are all connected and integrated. So you have the food distribution section, the volunteer section, the donor section. But we would initially start on the food distribution section, right? We wanted to make sure that we would help Bryant Community Center in that way, and then scale it up from there and see how we could scale it to other nonprofits that weren't necessarily doing the same thing. So you would choose food distribution. Your client would come up, show you his name, John Smith. Type it in, John Smith, yes. And then you'd get a recent history. So you would know if he came twice that month or 3 times that month. You'd have a history of him. And then at the end of the month, whenever you wanted to send a report to Food Gatherers, which is the place that Bryant Community uses for their food distributions, then you would be able to say, these are the predetermined things that I want to send out to them. These are the things that I want to analyze. This is what I want to send out. And then it would spit out this analysis, right? And so we would also want to make it flexible. So as a community center and different nonprofits want different analysis for different grants, we want to make sure that they can predetermine what it is, and that they don't need tech skills. They don't need to know computer science. They can just type in things, and then it'll spit out their analysis. And so how we wanted to scale this and why we wanted to scale this was for our impact goals. We want to help nonprofits achieve their goals, and we were going to focus on food nonprofits at first. And so our impact, our big impact, was alleviating hunger and poverty in local communities. And so we would basically give nonprofits the utility and the ability to be more efficient and to reach their mission statement more quickly and easier. So how we would do this is saving time through automation. They wouldn't have to flip through a binder and find each person. It would simplify the process, and we would also allow them to collect more information. They have more data to send to grant organizations. Hopefully that'll help them get more grants. So they're both saving time, allowing them to focus more on their mission, and they're also gaining more resources. So saving the resources and gaining more. And then in terms of food, we would allow them to track nutrition and allow them to track what they're actually giving out. And so that'll allow them to help out the community in giving them healthier foods and also becoming more efficient as a nonprofit, right? So our 2 big differentiating factors were that we were going to help them write grants, and we were also going to help them track nutrition, which we didn't think that a lot of different databases were doing. So now I'm going to go into more of the business model. So the key partners were going to be community centers, like Bryant Community Center, food distributors. So those are the larger food distributors like Gleaners, as well as the larger networks like Feeding America that has 7,000 food banks that they work with. And we were hoping that with them, if we gave them information that was more detailed and standardized across nonprofits, they would be able to tell where people are going, right? So if they're going outside of the community because they've exhausted the limited resources within the community, if they are getting healthier foods or not healthier foods. So making sure that food banks have some sort of incentive to purchase this, and working with them to figure out why they would purchase it. We would also work with grant organizations to figure out what sort of data they're looking for in their nonprofits, what would be really useful for them. Working with government agencies as well, because they often give out grants. And so as we're working with all of them, we would use community centers and food distributors as our main customers. And so reaching out to them first as a human base, reaching out to them through targeted pamphlets, and then later on maybe doing a larger online social media as well as search optimization thing once we can scale up. And so first off, we would want to maintain those relationships with community centers. We would want to have relationships with food distributors, and then we would want to contact grant organizations as well. And so our main costs are initially making the software. We would need funding up front. We would want to have that funding up front since we wouldn't be selling any yet. And we would also need people. So the main people that we are thinking of having are ourselves, so we're the management. We'd be overhead. We have the business skills, but we don't have the software making skills. And so that would be us. We would need someone who knows how to make software. And we've already got a computer engineer at the school working with us. We would also want a human interface machine specialist, right? So we have a School of Information graduate student who's working with us. He actually graduated, and he's working with us with the Bryant Community Center to make sure that the interface is really simple and that people can use this. The last thing is the actual software, right? So we need to make it really easy to use. We need to make it integrated. And we also need to make sure that we work on our IP issues. Since we're working on this out of house, then we would need to look into those issues. And so if you're looking at the entire market, there's 75,000 grant organizations. There are 1.18 million nonprofits. And nonprofits right now are spending $0 to $10,000 on their databases. And so that's sort of just an overview of the market in general. So you all know that we're folding. And the reasons why are we went into the customer discovery process with a few assumptions, right? And so she's a worried look. It's okay, we're okay with folding. So some of the assumptions that we made were, the first one was that we could scale this up. and so we wanted to look at different organizations and what they were doing. And I spoke to someone at Acumen Fund, and they're a very different nonprofit. We had never spoken to a nonprofit like that. They're almost like a venture capital nonprofit, right? And they use a ton of different databases. They even still use Google Docs. And so we initially thought, if you look at the bottom, we initially thought, nonprofits have these similar things that they're all working on. Inventory systems, these are all things that we can scale up. We realized just working with a few different nonprofits, they all have huge, very different missions. They all have very different ways to get to that mission. And that's great for nonprofits. There are a million of them for a reason, because there's so many different needs. But that makes it really hard as a database software company to try to address all of those needs. So that was definitely a challenge, challenging our first major assumption. So also, there are a lot of people working on the flexibility. Acumen Fund has a couple different databases that we spend tens of thousands of dollars on, and even then, they need some technical skills. So people are working on it, huge organizations are already working on it, and we assume that they're probably farther off than we are. And it's really hard to do. Second thing is thinking that they need a database, right? Thinking that our differentiating factors of nutritional information is enough to have people actually buy it. And so we realized that when we spoke to them about nutritional information, they said, oh, that's such a cool idea. That really sounds great. But then when we dug deeper, they were like, it's okay, it would be great to have, but I don't really know if we would use it, et cetera. And so something that we really realized is that they have limited resources, and they also are almost in survival mode. They want to achieve their mission, and that's the one thing that they're focusing on. They can't really think about long-term goals right now, especially considering the economy and considering that they're nonprofits. And so if they can afford databases besides Google Docs, they'll often go with things that are already out there that cost tens of thousands of dollars. The next thing is that we can help them with grant writing, but again, there's so many different variables that they're looking for that it's really hard to scale up. And there are also a lot of online free softwares that are already doing this. So we probably wouldn't be able to make any revenue. The next thing is that more data is better. Everyone should have more data. They already have some data, and they're already having trouble keeping up on that data. They don't really use it as much as they want to, and that's one of their main goals. But just providing them with more data isn't really going to address that need. The big thing is competition, right? So Google Docs are huge. Everyone uses Google Docs. And then, when you want to spend a lot more money, then there's Blackbaud and there are those bigger companies. Arctic Cause is actually something that their business model was pretty much exactly what we wanted to do. And they're kind of successful, they're doing it already, and they already have the gears rolling. So knowing that there's huge competition, there's also people who were differentiating themselves in ways that we were. There's Primarius, they're doing food databases as well. So competition is there. We also assumed that we were passionate and that we could do this even though we don't have those skills. We started losing passion once we realized that we couldn't do this and there was really nothing, not much that we could do as a group. And so in the end, we actually realized that there might be a market out there for a tech-savvy group down the road. We spoke to an MBA here who worked with Feeding America, and they work with 7,000 food banks, and they're actually revamping the nutritional system. They're going to make it a lot more complex. They want to track these things. And they're also trying to standardize across all of their 7,000 networks in 5 to 10 years. They know that right now, they estimated 30 to 50% of the people that they work with don't have the current technology and capabilities to actually be able to standardize. So they're waiting it out. They're waiting for nonprofits to catch up, and maybe in 5 to 10 years, a student venture like this could actually work. But in the meantime, our next steps are brainstorming a new plan. So over spring break and in that first week of March, we're going to be brainstorming, performing secondary research, and then all of March we're going to do our first phase of customer discovery. After that first week of April, we're going to decide if we want to continue customer discovery, if we want to try to plan an execution, if we want to try to prototype. But then this entire time we're going to be testing and implementing at Bryant. We've made a commitment. We love Derek. We want to give him a database that he can actually use, and this is something that we can do, and we can have this tangible effect. Even if we're not scaling it, we want to have that impact. So our problem statement right now is we want to look at the intersection of environment, education, community, and hunger, and we want to do this here. And so these are just sample things that we're looking at, and we're really going to come back strong and have those sticky notes out and have a big whiteboard. So basically, what we're asking out of you guys is to email us with any of your information, encouragement, steps forward, how we can be a better team, as well as a few, and we're really interested in local environmental things, so we're going to talk to farmers, restaurants, the community, and do some secondary research on Portland and Seattle and other cities that are a little bit ahead of Ann Arbor. So if you're interested in those things, have information about them, want to send us a cute quote, email us at TraceData.